Yeah, thank you, everybody. Michael Beshar, go by Besh. Spent 15 years at ESPN. I've been at Yahoo Sports for about 3.5 years. You're doing the math. Started when I was 12. So we're all millennials here. So you are actually sitting in our old former cafeteria. So we loved it. Enjoy it. Exciting time for Yahoo Sports. It's exciting time for sports in general, but specifically for Yahoo Sports, we were doing great. We were rooted in fantasy football. Who plays fantasy football here? Who plays Yahoo Sports fantasy football? You guys could stay. All right, so I mean, we are definitely a dominant force in fantasy football. That's in our DNA. We did a great job with that over the years. Then we had the good news that Verizon and AOL and Yahoo are coming together. I was very excited about that. Why? Because Verizon is rooted in sports and they believe in it and they back it up financially and in action. So June 13th, we merged 3 great companies. I was like, when is Christmas going to come? And it came very early. We signed a deal. We signed a deal with the NFL, and we signed a deal with the NBA. Those are 2 awesome NBA and NFL deals that we unveiled and we're bringing to our consumers. The NFL deal is a 5-year deal. It's mobile and tablet. We tested it this past playoffs with no consumer marketing whatsoever for the division, championship, and Super Bowl, and got 1.1 million downloads from it. So I was sitting in LA at the pool with my Yahoo Sports app watching the Super Bowl. Let me say that again. It was unbelievable. So when we talk about technology and how it's having a positive impact on fans, affinity, and consumer consumption, that's what it's doing. So that's one example. But enough about me. The panel is unbelievable, and I didn't want them to just say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so at Univision." They're going to be modest. I'm going to tell you guys what this panel is all about. So first and foremost, let's bring out Jane Busman-Wise. She's the Senior Director of Content and Communications, New York Red Bulls. Not only has she worked there, she worked at some small places, New York Rangers, Brooklyn Nets, Barclays Center, and most recently, Football Club. So sports, I mean, that's in her DNA as well. Next up, Nick Haynes. So Nick is a data scientist. So I kind of feel like I'm the dumbest guy on the panel. So he's a data scientist and a software engineer focused on building products with artificial intelligence. I'm going to have Nick talk about what that means to consumers, specifically the efforts he's done with Yahoo Fantasy Football and how it makes that better. Next up, we have Frank Nakano, JP Morgan. He's the managing director of sports and entertainment. He's involved in a lot of different things, but last year, Chase was awarded the Sponsor of the Year by SBJ. Primary relationships include US Open, Madison Square Garden, the Corporate Challenge, Startup Week, Atom Ticking, Chase Field, et cetera. And what's coming on the forefront for him and his company is the Chase Center in 2019. I don't know if you ever heard of a team called the Golden State Warriors. They're pretty good. And now there's going to be affiliation with Chase, and that's a very exciting part of his job, I'm sure, and he'll tell you a little more about that. Last but not least, Adrian Segovia, Univision. He's the VP of Digital Analytics Digital Analytics. He holds a degree in journalism. If that's not enough, he has a PhD in information technology. So that's what I'm telling you. Like they're just going to say their name and where they work. I mean, this is. I don't even know why I'm up here. So I'll take a seat. I want to hear from these. I want to hear from you guys. We want to start by asking you the first question about how are your companies evolving right now in terms of using technology to cross the gap and bridge the gap between consumption and your buying habits, et cetera. You want to start, Adrian?
Okay. Hello, everyone. As you know, my English is terrible, but let me try the opportunity. I live in Miami, and it is not the best place to learn English, as you know. But I am super happy there. I only was working a couple of years here in United States. I work in Spain all my life, in Madrid. As you know, Real Madrid is playing with Paris Saint-Germain in a couple of hours, and it is really the things that I want to comment on. Really, we are the home of the soccer in Univision, and obviously, we need to identify exactly which is the best place to share and to speak with the people there around the focus that we have. And our focus is soccer. for us it's very difficult in terms of the US Hispanic community speak about other soccers like other American media, you know? You need to identify first which is really your focus and which is really the things that your audience is waiting for you, okay? And it is really, I think that Univision knows and have really the know-how about, we know that we are the best, we have the best content in terms of soccer here in the United States. And of course, the language is the second really advantage that we have in this moment, you know. We know that every day we have a conversation, a public conversation with our audience, and we need to identify which is the best place to have this conversation. And obviously the technology is there. I am not speaking only about Facebook, but as you know, it is really the place of the conversation in terms of our community. And really, sometimes you have the feeling that you put one story, you put one topic, I think it is really the conversation that everyone starts to speak about that. We are trying to identify these kind of things. We are trying to balance between the goals, between the passion, and between the information, you know? And the technology can help, and we are using a lot of different things. For example, in terms of statistical information, it is really in sport, in my opinion, the best thing that you have right now, because you have a lot of automatic content, you can share results, you can stay there, because a lot of people is in a dinner or today, people is there, and you can see quickly which is the result of the Real Madrid Paris Saint-Germain. And it is extraordinary because the life of the people is there. You are in a dinner with your wife, and your wife is very sad if you are all the time with the cell phone, trying to match trying to watch the match. And with the technology, you can be close to the user and you can make this kind of information. No? And it is really the things that we are trying to do. Forget about the O&O and trying to go the conversation with the technology in the place that the user is.
Great answer. Frank, we were talking backstage about the Chase Center. Yes. Is there something there that you guys are doing that it's like technology-based that's going to make the consumption or the experience better for the fans?
Hopefully, for sure. Yeah. That's the goal. Or else you'll have somebody sitting up here different next year. For us, it's all about enhancing the live experience. We're really focused on, it's kind of simple in the sense of what are your pain points from the time you get the ticket, how do you buy it, where do you enter, how do you pay your way through the arena. You know, it's amazing to me in any venue when you go and it's halftime and there are just piles of lines at a concessions, and it's sort of built to fail that way, that you know that people are going to go out into the stands at that time. So technology hasn't yet caught up with ordering ahead, kind of very simple methods. And we've done that a lot with our partnership at the US Open or MSG. We're testing out a lot of new ways to use technology to enhance the fans' experience and for us, it's selfish, right? So we get a lot of data out of that information from who's in the building. We want to push you the right offer and reward you for being a fan of coming 6-7 times in a month rather than the classic, fan upgrade from the top of the stands. They play the move on up theme and they move some guy down. It should be really based on your consumption. So long-winded answer to your question, but it's pretty simple, just trying to enhance your experience in the arena.
So I go 6 times and I purchase with my Chase credit card. You would give me a discount on maybe a jersey, that kind of stuff, or how's that work?
That's for sure. I left that part out. Yeah. Okay. So we want you to use your product.
Okay.
But yes, from the time you enter, maybe we give you a speed pass line. Then you get discounts on food, beverage, discounts on merchandise. So it incents you to use it. So any individual offer may not be the sort of be all end all, but you'd be crazy not to be a client and use that product as your journey through the process.
That forms a nice connection between the fan and your company and giving them incentive. Yeah. Good, great job. So, what I'm going to ask you about? Tell the team how is your company doing a good job with fantasy football and taking all the analytics and data and making it telling a story for me. Because at the end of the day, all we really care about is our teams And if it feels like it's personalized and customized to me, I'm more apt to read it and celebrate it. So tell us what your company does with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nick. I lead the data science team at Automated Insights. So Automated Insights, we build natural language generation technology. So basically what that means is we take raw structured data as an input. As an output, we give our users back narratives that describe what that data means. So in sports and in media, what that means is we are generating millions of narratives every year that are personalized, that we're sending directly out to fans, right? And what this does is it takes all this massive amount of statistical data and actually puts narrative around it, explains, to each fan, what are the things that I care about, and what are sort of the interesting statistics that I wasn't really aware about that have happened recently. So we've worked for a long time, over 5 years with Yahoo. So I saw a show of hands earlier for the people who play fantasy football with Yahoo. So if you play, after every matchup you get a recap of how your team did, right? And if for some inexplicable reason you benched Julio Jones on one of the weeks where he had 200 yards, it's going to be pretty snarky with you and tell you exactly how many points you lost and that was a terrible decision. And so, what we found, so over the course of our 5-year or more partnership with Yahoo, this extremely personalized communication that we're sending out to every player with Yahoo's fantasy football, that's led to over 100 years of additional engagement with Yahoo's content. So, if you just think about, from a media perspective, the amount of additional engagement that generates, as well as, then obviously the increased cost that you can sell advertising to when your users are that much more engaged. We found that really sort of, the story and the narrative that you wrap around the statistics rather than just presenting a box score is really, really what drives engagement and where we see sort of the future moving.
Great. If you guys don't play, you should give it a shot. It's really amazing.
I get a terrible score every week.
Well,
I co-manage my team with a colleague, and so if it was great, we would talk, but I consistently was getting C's, and it's like, what are we doing with our team? I'm not very good when it comes to American football.
And 1/3 of the players are female, and pretty much every league I'm in, the female ones, which is great. My the head of fantasy product was dead last. And we made him get a fake I suck at fantasy football unicorn on his neck. So that's what happens. I mean, it's more than it's bragging rights and it's shame rights. And he enjoyed the latter, and we enjoyed it more than he did. So Jane, New York Red Bull. We were talking about Red Bulls. We were talking about some things backstage, and someone mentioned in the last panel just the power of esports. And I wasn't a believer until I saw it live. I actually didn't. My parents would say, like, what are you doing? You're wasting your life away. Now you tell your kids, like, do something good. Go play video games and be a gamer. Because what am I doing? I'm watching LeBron dunk, and I'm not dunking. So, like, am I going to mirror what he does on the court? Probably not, aka definitely not. So that's the reality. So tell the team how you guys are doing something besides just with your players, something that bridges the gap between esports and your players.
Yes. Recently, MLS announced the EMLS, and there'll be an EMLS Cup coming up at PAX East in Boston. And I was, sort of not familiar with PAX and with gaming, sort of at a higher level, but PAX attracts about 140,000 people to this conference over 4 days. And to your point, the numbers and the data, and a lot of us are talking about being sort of data-driven and looking at the numbers. So we announced recently Michael LaBelle is our professional esports player. He will represent us. And there'll be 19 teams participating in this league. And when you talk about ways to, engage fans outside of sort of that 90 minutes for us when the game is on, FIFA is the #1 video game in the world that's played, and in the US. I see it, and I'm sure a lot of people here do, whether you play or, my niece, my nephew who's 10 is far better at it than I am. But he knows everyone on our roster, and he knows the players, and he knows their attributes. And similar to fantasy football, you find yourself caring more about the team, and you know who the players are. So we've got a professional gamer now in Michael, and similarly, growing up, he told his parents, I want to play video games, and it was, what are you doing, and what are you going to do after college? He played college soccer, and this is a profession. He's also a content creator and creates a lot of great content on YouTube. For us, that was important. We needed somebody who could play this video game, but also create content that engages with the esports community in a way that we currently didn't in a real sort of way. And the announcement, when we announced Mike, rivaled any player announcement. The engagement that we saw on our Twitter was, I think, 25x a normal tweet. So it's real, the numbers were there. We feel good about Mike and what we're able to do there, creating content with our players. Our players play the game too, so no surprise there that it's real and it's authentic. And when we want to do something to show sort of another side of our players, this is a real way that fans can connect. It's something that we can do that sort of humanizes them. And the numbers on Twitch are incredible. People want to watch people play video games, just like you watch people play a sport. It seems sort of crazy to us that grew up without it, but the millions of people watching on streams have convinced me that it's real, and we're excited about this season. It'll be our first season in EMLS, and the kickoff is at EMLS Cup in PAX East in April. So for us, it'll be kind of a first venture into that, and it'll be an exciting year for us.
Awesome. If someone paints their face and wears a cape as a fan, for any sport, it's legit. It's like the next level. And I saw a lot of, in Brooklyn, the barnyard, one of those events in the arena in Barclays, I was like, there's a lot of that stuff. So if you haven't seen it, I really recommend it, because I did not believe it until I saw it. So we talked about what you guys have done and what you're doing. Can you give us a glimpse on the next 18 months, 24 months on what's on your wish list on technology? Either it's something involving social, hopefully it's involving mobile, maybe it's involving both of them. So just kind of, anyone want to jump in terms of what's on their wish list for the next 24 months?
Well, we were just talking about
Yeah.
esports, and I think just in general, like video games are huge, and it's this huge growing market. And I think at Automated Insights, so about a year ago, we started partnering with Activision, and so we've been doing these fantasy football recaps for 5 or 6 seasons now, and now actually we're doing similar things for the Call of Duty games. And so, it's this idea, our company's founder always says that, our goal is not to, generate one article that 1 million people read. Rather, our goal is to generate 1 million articles, each of which has one reader. So the sort of esports and our Call of Duty work is sort of right in line with that, where as this field grows or the market grows and you have more and more people playing these games, how can we target each one of them with sort of narratives and data and actually put that data into context in a way that drives engagement, that increases sort of their enjoyment of the entire experience rather than, like you were saying, just within the game itself. So yeah, exactly. So I think for us the future is expanding that engagement outside of just playing the game to sort of other parts of their life as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, as a sales guy, the challenge I had with esports, candidly, was the fact that about 85% have ad blockers. So obviously, no surprise. It's a high number, and I think it's increasing every year. So the challenge is kind of integrating the messaging and the brand message and equities into the actual show, albeit signage, logos, and inclusion and whatnot. Challenge is it's not like third-party measured. It's just kind of So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, while it's good, there's challenges in terms of a consumer or a client reaching those consumers.
I mean, we're still learning a lot about the space, but I think it's, you can't approach it in the way we have, I think, is traditional advertising. So, for example, Mike is wearing a New York Red Bull shirt, and he's a Red Bull athlete, and it has, obviously, on our jersey, it's an Adidas jersey. There's opportunities there. I think on the content side and content creation, co-branded content, that's where I think we'll see a lot of real engagements. It's not as easy to measure as I think we have in the past, but I think when you look at that younger, I mean, it's a very young, it's younger than millennial fan base. It is true. Ad blocker is running. It's a very different way to reach that audience. But if you can find a sort of an influencer, a person, a creator, an esports player, and you work on those really authentic integrations, and those are some of the things we're talking about with our partners, because they do want to be in the space. There's natural tie-ins with sort of consoles and sort of headsets and things like that, but other partners want to be in the space, and you see big brands sort of getting involved, but it's not going to be in the traditional way I think we had in the past.
I think the technology can also enhance the actual game in a lot of ways, not just the sort of how you watch it or absorb it. I took a peek at the key motion pitch going in, and if they're installed, I know in a lot of D-League teams and in Santa Cruz with the Warriors, but if you think about what that enables a coach to do, to look at the analytics of, because the way it triangulates around the players for analytics of who's on the court at what time, it's a very scientific process now in the game, and that gives coaches real-time feedback on who and how we're on the court in any different sequence. It's also, I got to imagine, a lot cheaper than the traditional setup, and most teams wouldn't set up a traditional broadcast for a game like that. But again, I'm assuming it's a lot cheaper, so it gives coaches a lot of ability to improve the product pretty quickly and enhancing the fan experience.
Yeah, it's a great point. Didn't even think about the fan actually at the game. Good point. Adrian?
To be honest, it is a really crazy market. All the things is we need to adapt a new narrative in Instagram. We need to forget about the Snapchat because it's only for kids. You need to create a new content, but you have the same persons, same people in the new room. The unique thing is changing the distribution. You are winning a lot of audience coming from Facebook, but change the algorithm and you lost. Or no, you need to go again to Google, and it's really a crazy market. The speed is terrible, and not everyone in the new room is adapt with this speed of the change, and you need to change all the time the narrative. But the unique thing that you are sure that you will have in the future is the story. Yep. The story in terms of content, it is really, really, really the thing that is impossible to change. You need to find this story and adapt the conversation. And really, it is really in 2 years, I don't know exactly which is the technology that can help better for us or is performing well. We have a lot of data in this moment. All the editors is working with data. Charbit, Google Analytics, you can know exactly which is the link more invisible in your homepage that can find if you have one opportunity to move content there. Probably the data need to put the focus in the correct recommendations, because if not, everyone is working only for the audience. And I think that we need to work also for other things, not only for the audience. Obviously, I understand the business, but sometimes the speed is really not the best friend of the quality, or is not the best friend of the thinking about the narrative that you need to do. And it is really the future. I think that we need to put something of order in terms of all the things that is happening quickly.
I mean, it's a great point. That's why you have a PhD and I don't.
Sounds much better when he says it.
It really does.
Thank you.
But the reality, I mean, you hit on a key thing, and that's data. Yahoo Sports, we were going against ESPN, CBS, NBC's the world, and candidly, it was sometimes an uphill battle. What I would say, how we're different, I would always say, you know what, we're a sports site, but we also have the email and search data. So we had a great thing. Now we're part of AOL, which is, we have 34 different PC units, and we are also part of Verizon, which reaches 105 million mobile users and all their carrier data that's so important to clients. So that's kind of what you have to think of. I mean, you kind of brought it back where it's, content is great, and content is still king, and premium content is still important to consumers. But in terms of when we're talking to the ad community, they want it all, and they want content plus data, and that helps them get efficiencies that they won't get anywhere else. So we have 6 more minutes. I want to hear, are there things on your wish list? Are there things that you wish you grabbed onto, or there's things that you're like hoping to, or can you tell the team, I don't think this is going to work, or I think this is going to work? So just spitball here. So Snapchat, what do you think? I'll put you on the fire for that.
Yes, I think that Snapchat, no, Instagram stories.
Okay.
It is really the opportunity.
I'm not going to ask him about Yahoo Sports. He's honest. It's good. I like it.
No,
I
believe
hear you.
that you have the opportunity, of course, to communicate in all the platforms with a different narrative and trying to understand which is your audience. For example, we have the problem with the US Hispanic because you know the second generation that the English is really the mother language right now. But we are a media in Spanish. We need to try to do things in English, or we need to try to communicate this kind of audience in a different skills that we are making right now.
Yeah.
The audience change. The things is go to speed, and we need to do a different things right there, no? And the platforms, you need to understand what is happening there. If you have the same story, probably the distribution of the story in Snapchat and in Instagram story could be necessary to change the narrative in two platforms that more or less have exactly the same proposal. And it is really crazy because you have a lot of diversity in your newsroom. You have a lot of, you need to have different people there that understand this kind of platforms, you know, and it's complicated, you know.
Totally. Frank, wish list. Anything good? What do you got? You have a lot on your plate already. But
Yeah, no,
is there
it's great.
something else that your boss doesn't know that you're going to do?
No, I think for us, it's exciting, right? We're looking at all different platforms, where fans are, how they are. Our blessing and curse is our scale and our customer base. Yeah. So it's everyone, you know, in a room worrying about how the new, and it's not, sometimes used as a derogatory word, but it's not meant to be. The millennials are banking. My kids are never going to go into a branch and bank in a sort of old-fashioned way. So how do we use our partnerships to really leverage, you know, our core product and services? We do that across all our lines of business as well. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and it's tough to keep up with where all the opportunities are.
It is tough to keep up. Nick?
Well, I think, you know, we've already heard the terms, you know, machine learning and artificial intelligence on the stage this morning. I think for us at Automated Insights, right, so, you know, my job essentially is to build these technologies into our platform. I think, you know, when you hear the term natural language generation, I think a lot of people sort of have a misconception. They think, oh, you know, you've built some magical, you know, deep learning neural network black box that just somehow automatically takes all this data and spits out content. And that's just not the case, right? We would not be sending millions of emails to Yahoo's, you know, customers every week if it was generated by a neural network. Because even if you had 99% accuracy with that neural network, with millions of emails being sent out every week, you'd be sending tens of thousands of mistaken emails out every week. That would not fly with Yahoo. So, you know, where my thinking is going and where, you know, I think that we will be moving in the next several years is how can we use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help the people who are designing this content, right? We can't have it generate the content itself. That is really only something that a human can do, or a human can at least design, right? But how can we use these additional technologies to provide recommendations so that you know, the people who are actually building out this content that will be sent out to millions of people, you know, how can they be sure that there aren't going to be mistakes in it? How can they do it faster? How can they, you know, sort of call out insights that they may not have sort of discovered on their own? So you know, in terms of machine learning and AI, again, it's building systems that help users generate content rather than generating content automatically for users, I think.
Makes sense. So Jane, I'll end with you. You know, soccer obviously is a world sport. It's a powerhouse around the world. U.S. it's doing well, but like, you know, it's still not the NFL. So how can you use technology and just reach this passionate soccer fans, but then open it up to other people that, you know, played soccer but maybe lost a little bit of it because of the U.S. dynamic?
Yeah, that's our challenge. So where I spend my time is just thinking about our fans. So we, the past 2 years in a row, have been voted J.D. Power the best fan experience in New York, in the market, which I think probably not a lot of people know, or not a lot of people have probably been to Red Bull Arena. So I think for us, I spend time thinking about how do I use technology, how do I use data, content, all of that to enhance the fan experience, particularly at the arena. So we're working on a mobile app, and we're thinking about it not just as a singular app for the team in arena, but sort of as a platform. We have to think of it more broadly. I think some of the things we're all talking about here, how do I, you know, what's a mobile wallet experience? How do we enhance? I mean, we only have that crunch at halftime, because otherwise, if you're watching soccer, you're not getting up, there's no breaks. It's different than, and I've worked in basketball and hockey. So how do we use technology to make it easier for our fans, just like I do when I go to Dunkin' sort of every day, and I can just grab my coffee and go. So we spend a lot of time on that. How do we utilize the data to understand our fans better? so we can serve them online. I think you see a lot of happening around broadcast with OTT and linear. You've seen teams like LAFC in Seattle and their YouTube TV partnership. I think that's changing that we're looking at. So for us, it comes back to the fans and how do we better serve them? We've got to use the data to tell us that, and then the technology to be able to enhance it.
Gotcha. Well said. 15 seconds, just like Christian. Are we going to pause again? Namaste. All right, thanks to the smartest panel around.
Thank you.